In the vast darkness between stars, where civilizations rise and fall like distant candles, there exists a universal truth that every spacefaring species learns: never underestimate the unknown. The Zephyrian Armada had conquered 17 star systems, their biomechanical warships feared across 3 galactic sectors. Their sensors were unmatched, their weapons devastating, their tactical prowess legendary. They had never encountered a force they couldn't overwhelm or a mystery they couldn't solve. Until they detected a single, impossible vessel drifting in the void. What happened next would rewrite the rules of galactic warfare forever, and force the universe to confront a terrifying question: what happens when humanity's greatest strength isn't their technology, their weapons, or their numbers, but their absolute refusal to follow anyone else's rules? The Zephyrian Fleet Admiral's final transmission lasted exactly 12 seconds. The investigation that followed would take months. The nightmares would last forever. The bridge of the Zephyrian flagship Sovereigns might hum with the subdued efficiency of a perfectly orchestrated war machine. Fleet Admiral Vexhar stood before the main display, his forearms folded behind his chitinous back as he surveyed the tactical readouts spreading across the holographic interface. 300 vessels of the most advanced fleet in known space moved in perfect formation through the Kepler void, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with bioluminescent displays that would have struck terror into any civilized species. The Zephyrians had earned their reputation through methodical conquest and technological superiority. Their ships didn't just carry weapons, they were living weapons, grown from engineered organisms that could adapt, repair, and evolve during combat. Their neural networks linked every vessel in the fleet, creating a hive mind of tactical awareness that had never been defeated in over 2 centuries of expansion. "Admiral," the sensor operator's voice carried the typical Zephyrian clicking undertones, "we're detecting an anomalous reading at bearing 27 Mark IV. Vexar's primary eyes remained fixed on the display while his secondary pair swiveled to examine the incoming data stream. "Define anomalous, Tactical Officer Zixhel." "Unknown energy signature, sir." "The vessel appears to be of artificial construction, but it doesn't match any known signatures in our database." Zixhal's claws danced across the bioneural interface. "Mass displacement suggests a single ship, approximately 800 meters in length." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "A single vessel? In the Kepler void?" He gestured to the tactical display with one of his lower arms. "There are no habitable systems within 30 light-years of this position." "What's the propulsion signature?" "That's the anomaly, sir. There is no propulsion signature. The vessel appears to be drifting." Now Vexhar turned fully toward the sensor station. In his 3 centuries of military service, he had encountered derelict ships before, but never in such a remote location. The Kepler void was exactly that, a region of space notable only for its absolute emptiness. No trade routes passed through it, no civilizations had ever been detected within 50 light-years of their current position. Could it be a probe from an unknown species? The question came from Communications Officer Kielneff, whose enlarged cranium housed one of the most sophisticated linguistic processing centers in the fleet. "Possible," Vexhar mused, "but unlikely. Our long-range scouts would have detected any civilization capable of launching vessels this far into the void." He paused, considering the implications. "Begin a full-spectrum analysis. I want to know everything about that ship, its composition, technology level, potential threat assessment." The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their biomechanical interfaces allowing them to process information at speeds that would have been impossible for purely biological or technological systems. The Zephyrians had long ago learned that the marriage of organic and artificial intelligence created possibilities that neither could achieve alone. "Sir," Zixhal's voice carried a note of confusion, "initial scans are unusual. The hull composition includes materials we don't recognize, arranged in patterns that don't conform to any known engineering principles." Vexhar moved to stand directly behind the sensor operator. "Explain." "The vessel appears to be constructed from a mixture of metallic alloys and what our sensors identify as ceramic composites, but the molecular structure is unlike anything in our databases." "More concerning, sir, the ship's design doesn't follow conventional physics for spacefaring vessels." The Admiral's secondary eyes narrowed. "Elaborate." "There's no visible propulsion system, no obvious weapon ports, and the power signature is minimal, barely above background radiation.
Yet the structural integrity readings suggest it could withstand tremendous stress. It's as if someone built a ship specifically to be inconspicuous. Perhaps it's damaged, suggested Navigation Officer HYX Rum from her position at the rear of the bridge. A vessel that's lost power and is drifting. Negative, Zixhal replied immediately. Life support appears to be functional. We're detecting what appear to be inhabited sections, though the biosignatures are strange. Vexar felt the familiar tingle of anticipation that came before first contact with a new species. The Zephyrian Empire had built its power on such encounters, studying new civilizations, learning their weaknesses, and either absorbing them peacefully or crushing them efficiently. Each new species brought new technologies, new biological adaptations to study and incorporate. Strange how? The life forms aboard don't match any known classification. They appear to be carbon-based bipeds, but their metabolic rates are unusual. More significantly, sir, their technology seems to be purely mechanical, no bioneural components that we can detect. This was genuinely surprising. Every spacefaring civilization the Zephyrians had encountered used some form of biomechanical hybrid technology. The advantages were simply too significant to ignore. Organic components could self-repair, adapt to changing conditions, and process certain types of data more efficiently than pure machines. Perhaps they haven't discovered biointegration yet, Keelneth suggested. We may have found a primitive civilization that's only recently achieved interstellar capability. Vexhar considered this. It would explain the strange ship design and the lack of recognizable technology signatures. A young species, perhaps on its first tentative voyage beyond its home system, only to become stranded in the void through mechanical failure or navigational error. Admiral, the communications officer's voice carried excitement. I'm detecting electromagnetic transmissions from the vessel. They appear to be using radio frequencies. Radio? Vexar's mandibles clicked in what could only be described as disbelief. Radio communication had been abandoned by most species millennia ago in favor of quantum entanglement networks and bioneural broadcasting. Are you certain? Positive, sir. Primitive electromagnetic radiation across multiple frequencies. Should I attempt to establish communication? The Admiral paused, considering the situation. A primitive species, drifting in the void, using obsolete communication technology. This could be either an incredible opportunity or an elaborate trap. The latter seemed unlikely given the technological disadvantage the unknown vessel appeared to be at. Patch me through to all section commanders, Vexar ordered. I want a full tactical analysis of this situation before we make contact. Within minutes, the bridge's holographic display filled with the images of the fleet's senior officers. Each commanded a section of 50 to 60 vessels, and their combined experience represented the collective military wisdom of the Zephyrian Empire. As you can see, Vexar began, gesturing to the tactical display showing the unknown vessel. We have encountered an unidentified ship of unknown origin. Initial analysis suggests a primitive civilization using purely mechanical technology. Section Commander Thrixin Ale, a veteran of the Andromeda campaign, spoke first. Size of the vessel suggests either a massive cargo transport or a primitive warship. Given the location, cargo seems unlikely. Agreed, added Section Commander Yalsef. But, if it's a warship, it's unlike any design in our tactical databases. No visible weapons, no defensive screens that we can detect. Perhaps their weapons are concealed, suggested Section Commander Vixkale, whose section specialized in reconnaissance and intelligence gathering. Some species prefer stealth over obvious displays of power. Vexhar nodded. My thoughts exactly. We'll proceed with standard first contact protocols, but maintain full tactical readiness. If this is a trap, we'll be ready for it. The assembled commanders acknowledged their orders and their images faded from the display. Within minutes, the entire fleet had shifted into a defensive formation, with the unknown vessel at the center of an elaborate sphere of ships. Each vessel powered up its biomechanical weapons systems while maintaining what appeared to be a peaceful posture. Communications, Vexar ordered, transmit on multiple frequencies using our standard first contact package. Mathematics, physics constants, basic pictographs. Let's see if they respond.
The next several hours passed with painstaking care as the Zephyrians attempted to establish meaningful communication with the unknown vessel. To their surprise, the response came relatively quickly: mathematical sequences that confirmed the aliens understood basic concepts of number theory and physics. The communication proved they were dealing with an intelligent species, though one that seemed remarkably unsophisticated in their transmission methods. "Sir," Keelneth reported, "I believe I've established a basic linguistic framework. They call themselves humans and their vessel is designated Wanderer. They claim to be explorers from something they call the solar system." "Explorers," Vexhar mused. "That would explain their presence in the void. What about their technology level?" "Still analyzing, but they appear to use controlled chemical explosions for propulsion and generate power through nuclear processes. Extremely primitive by our standards, but functional." "And their reason for being here?" "They claim to be investigating gravitational anomalies in this region of space. Scientific expedition, not military." This was becoming more interesting by the moment. The Zephyrians respected scientific inquiry. Their own empire had been built on the careful study and application of new knowledge. Perhaps these humans could be approached as potential allies rather than subjects for conquest. "Sir," Zixhal's voice carried a note of concern, "I'm detecting power fluctuations in their vessel. It appears their life support may be failing." Vexhar's decision was immediate. "Signal the rescue vessels. If they're in distress, we'll offer assistance." This could be an excellent opportunity to study their biology and technology while establishing friendly relations. "Admiral," Keelneth interrupted, "the humans are requesting permission to board our vessel? They're asking if we have medical facilities that could assist with treating injured crew members." "How many crew?" "They report a complement of 42 individuals." Vexhar considered this. 42 beings on a vessel 800 meters long suggested either an extremely automated ship or a species that built on a vastly different scale than most civilizations. Either way, allowing them aboard would provide invaluable intelligence about this new species. "Grant permission. Direct them to Docking Bay 7 and have medical teams standing by. I want full biological isolation protocols until we understand their physiology." As the bridge crew coordinated the docking procedures, Vexhar allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. This encounter could mark a significant expansion of Zephyrian knowledge and influence. A primitive but intelligent species would make ideal subjects for gradual integration into the Empire, willing students who could benefit from Zephyrian guidance while contributing their own unique perspectives to the collective knowledge base. The unknown vessel, now identified as the human ship Wanderer, began moving under its own power toward the flagship. Vexhar watched with professional interest as the ship's primitive chemical rockets fired in precise sequences to match the Sovereign's might's velocity and vector. Despite their technological limitations, the humans showed competent piloting skills. "Admiral," the security officer's voice came through the comm system, "the human vessel has successfully docked. Their representatives are requesting permission to come aboard." "How many?" "3 individuals, sir. They appear to be wearing primitive environmental suits." "Escort them to conference room 5. I'll meet with them personally." Vexhar straightened his ceremonial armor and checked that his translator implant was functioning properly. First contact with a new species was always a momentous occasion, and he wanted to ensure the encounter proceeded smoothly. As he made his way through the biomechanical corridors of his flagship, Vexhar reflected on the strange circumstances of this meeting. In all his years of service, he had never encountered a species so technologically primitive yet capable of traveling such vast distances. It spoke to either remarkable determination or remarkable desperation. The conference room's organic walls shifted to a more neutral coloration as he entered, and the bioluminescent panels adjusted to provide optimal lighting. 3 translation officers took their positions at the monitoring stations while security personnel stationed themselves discreetly around the perimeter. When the door's iris opened to admit the human delegation, Vexhar got his first look at the species that had built the mysterious vessel in the void. They were indeed bipedal, roughly 2 meters tall, with pale skin partially visible through transparent faceplates. Their environmental suits appeared to be mechanical rather than bioadaptive, confirming the technological assessment. Welcome aboard the Sovereign's Might, Vexhar began, the translator converting his clicks and harmonics into what he hoped were appropriate human vocalizations.
I am Fleet Admiral Vexhar of the Zephyrian Empire. We understand you may need assistance.
The center human stepped forward, removing their helmet to reveal features that were surprisingly expressive despite their alien nature.
Admiral, I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Earthship Wanderer. Thank you for responding to our distress call.
Captain Chen, Vexhar repeated, testing the strange sounds.
Your vessel appears to be intact. What assistance do you require?
Our life support systems are failing, Chen replied. We're 12 light-years from the nearest resupply point, and our backup systems won't last more than another 72 hours. We were hoping you might have compatible atmosphere we could use, or perhaps technology that could help us repair our systems.
Vexhar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. We can certainly provide assistance.
Our biomechanical systems can adapt to produce atmospheres suitable for most carbon-based life forms.
However, I must ask, what brings your people so far into the void? Scientific curiosity, Chen answered with what the translator interpreted as a smile.
We detected unusual gravitational readings from this region and wanted to investigate.
We didn't expect to encounter anyone else out here.
Nor did we, Vexhar admitted.
Your species is unknown to our databases. This is first contact for both our civilizations. The implications hung in the air between them.
First contact was always significant, but encountering a previously unknown spacefaring species so far from any known civilization was unprecedented. The humans had somehow developed interstellar capability independently, without any contact with the galactic community.
Admiral, one of Chen's companions spoke for the first time, our sensors show you have quite an impressive fleet. Are you a military force? We are explorers and protectors, Vexhar replied diplomatically.
The Zephyrian Empire seeks to bring order and prosperity to the galaxy through cooperation and shared knowledge. Chen's expression shifted slightly, and Vexhar noted what appeared to be a brief exchange of glances between the three humans.
That's admirable, she said carefully. We'd be very interested in learning more about your civilization.
And we yours, Captain Chen.
Perhaps we could begin with cultural and technological exchanges while we address your immediate needs?
Over the next several hours, the initial meeting expanded into a broader discussion as more officers from both sides joined the conference. The humans proved to be remarkably intelligent despite their technological limitations, asking insightful questions about Zephyrian biomechanical systems while sharing information about their own civilization. What emerged was a picture of a species that had achieved remarkable things through pure determination and mechanical ingenuity. Earth, according to Chen, was a single world that had given birth to a civilization that had already begun spreading to other planets within their solar system. Their journey to this remote location represented one of their first attempts at true interstellar exploration. Your species interests me greatly, Vexhar admitted as the formal discussions wound down.
The fact that you've achieved interstellar flight without biomechanical integration suggests approaches we hadn't considered.
We'd be honored to share our knowledge, Chen replied. And we're very grateful for your assistance with our ship. Your biomechanical technology is unlike anything we've ever imagined. As arrangements were made to transfer necessary supplies to the human vessel and provide technical assistance for their failing systems, Vexhar felt a growing excitement about the possibilities this encounter represented. The humans could prove to be valuable additions to the Empire. Their mechanical expertise combined with Zephyrian biotechnology could create innovations neither species could achieve alone.
Admiral, Chen said as the meeting concluded, there's one thing I should mention. Our ship isn't just a research vessel, it's also carrying a message for anyone we might encounter. A message? From Earth's government. A formal greeting to any alien civilizations we might meet, along with information about humanity and our desire for peaceful contact. Vexhar's interest peaked.
Official communications between civilizations were serious matters, often serving as the foundation for future diplomatic relationships.
We would be honored to receive such a message.
I'll have it transmitted to your communications systems, Chen promised.
And, Admiral? Thank you again for your help. This encounter has exceeded our wildest hopes for first contact.
As the human delegation returned to their ship, Vexar couldn't help but feel that this chance encounter in the void might prove to be one of the most significant events of his career. A new species, with new technologies and new perspectives, could reinvigorate the Empire's expansion and development. But, as the human message began arriving through the ship's communication systems, and as the technical team started analyzing the mechanical systems of the Wanderer, the first subtle inconsistencies began to emerge. Small things at first: power readings that didn't quite match the ship's apparent capability, structural elements that seemed unnecessarily robust, and navigation logs that revealed the Wanderer had traveled much farther than should have been possible with their stated technology. The humans, it seemed, were not quite as primitive as they appeared. Chief Engineer Nixtal had served aboard Zephyrian vessels for over a century, her biomechanical interfaces allowing her to commune directly with the ship's living systems in ways that few species could comprehend. As she led her team through the docking tube connecting the Sovereign's might to the human vessel Wanderer, she expected to find the crude mechanical systems that the aliens had described.
What she discovered instead challenged everything she thought she knew about engineering.
"By the void," whispered her assistant, Junior Engineer Kazheim, as they passed through the Wanderer's airlock.
"These corridors are larger than I expected." Nixtal nodded grimly.
The human ship's internal architecture was indeed impressive: wide passages that could easily accommodate large equipment, with structural supports that spoke of engineering far more sophisticated than the primitive chemical rockets visible on the exterior would suggest. The walls themselves were smooth and clean, made from alloys that her scanner couldn't immediately identify. "Captain Chen," Nixtal addressed the human leader who had volunteered to guide them through the ship, "your vessel's construction is quite remarkable.
These support beams suggest you've solved some complex structural stress problems." Chen's translator converted the Zephyrian engineer's clicking speech into human audible range. "Thank you. Earth's engineers have had to be creative working with purely mechanical systems. We've learned to build things that last." As they moved deeper into the ship, Nixtal's enhanced senses began picking up subtle inconsistencies. The power distribution she could feel through her biomechanical implants was far more sophisticated than anything she'd detected during external scans. Conduits that should have been carrying simple electrical current were pulsing with energy patterns that suggested advanced power management systems. "This is your engine room," she asked as Chen led them into a vast chamber dominated by what appeared to be a massive cylindrical structure. "Our main drive," Chen confirmed. "Fusion rockets with magnetic plasma containment."
"Nothing fancy by your standards, I'm sure, but it gets us where we need to go." Nixtal approached the drive system with growing confusion.
Her scanners were detecting magnetic field fluctuations that were orders of magnitude more complex than any fusion drive should require. Moreover, the power output readings she was getting suggested this single system could generate more energy than entire Zephyrian battlecruisers.
"Captain Chen," she said carefully, "my instruments are reading some unusual signatures from your drive system.
Would you mind if I ran some detailed scans?"
"Of course," Chen replied with what appeared to be genuine enthusiasm.
"We'd love to get your perspective on our technology. Maybe you could suggest some improvements."
As Nixtal began her detailed analysis, her assistant moved to examine other systems throughout the engineering section.
What they found defied explanation.
Every component they examined appeared to be exactly what the humans claimed it was: mechanical systems using principles that any engineer could understand.
Yet the combined effect was performance that exceeded anything in the Zephyrian databases.
"Chief," Kazheim's voice carried confusion through their private biolink, "these atmospheric processors are producing breathable air for 42 beings using less energy than our systems need for a single Zephyrian."
"How is that possible?"
Nixtal shared her assistant's bewilderment. The human ship operated on efficiency ratios that should have been impossible with mechanical systems. Biomechanical hybrid technology achieved its advantages precisely because organic components could self-optimize and adapt to changing conditions in ways that pure machinery could not. "Captain Chen," she began carefully, "your life support systems appear to be remarkably efficient.
How did your engineers achieve such optimization without adaptive biocomponents?" Chen's expression suggested pride mixed with something that might have been amusement. "Human engineering philosophy is probably different from yours. We tend to over-engineer everything and, then, optimize through iteration.
When your life depends on something working perfectly every time, you build it to work perfectly every time. But, the efficiency ratios are the result of about 3 centuries of people dying when systems failed, Chen interrupted, her tone becoming more serious. Every component on this ship represents lessons learned from mistakes that killed someone, somewhere. We don't have the luxury of adaptive technology, so we build things that don't need to adapt. The explanation made sense from a philosophical standpoint, but Nixtal's instruments continued to detect anomalies that pure mechanical engineering shouldn't be able to achieve.
The power coupling alone should have been impossible without organic neural networks to manage the complex interactions between systems.
Chief, Kazheim's voice again through their private channel, I think you need to see this. Nixtal followed her assistant to what appeared to be a maintenance panel. Kazheim had removed the cover, revealing the internal workings of what the humans had described as a computer core. Look at these processing matrices, Kazheim pointed to crystalline structures embedded within mechanical housings. These aren't just mechanical components. There's some form of quantum-level information processing happening here. Nixtal examined the structures with her enhanced vision. The crystals appeared to be artificial, grown rather than manufactured, and the energy patterns flowing through them suggested information processing capabilities that rivaled Zephyrian bioneural networks. Captain Chen, Nixtal turned to their human guide, these computing systems appear to be more advanced than your initial descriptions suggested.
Advanced? Chen moved to look at what they were examining.
Oh, you mean the quantum processing cores?
Yes, those are relatively new additions to our technology base.
We developed them about 50 years ago when purely electronic systems couldn't handle the computational requirements for interstellar navigation.
Quantum processing is not a simple achievement, Nixtal observed.
Most species require centuries of technological development before they can create stable quantum computational matrices.
Chen's expression shifted slightly.
Humans have always been good at taking theoretical concepts and making them work in practice.
Sometimes necessity pushes innovation faster than normal development cycles would suggest.
The response raised more questions than it answered. Nixtal had studied the technological development patterns of dozens of species, and quantum computing represented a fundamental breakthrough that required massive theoretical foundations. For a species using chemical rockets to have achieved such computational sophistication suggested either remarkable genius or access to knowledge from unknown sources. Chief, another member of her engineering team called from across the engineering bay, you need to see this power distribution network. Nixtal and Chen moved to where engineer Vauxhall was examining a series of conduits that ran along the ceiling.
These aren't just electrical cables, he reported.
There are quantum entanglement communicators running parallel to the power systems. The entire ship appears to be connected through instantaneous communication networks.
Quantum entanglement communicators?
Nixtal's mandibles clicked in disbelief.
Captain Chen, such technology represents one of the most advanced communication systems known to galactic civilization. Really?
Chen seemed genuinely surprised. For us, it's just how we make sure all the ship's systems can talk to each other fast enough to maintain operational safety. When you're dealing with the power levels our systems generate, you need faster-than-light communication just to prevent catastrophic failures. The casual way Chen described technology that had taken the Zephyrian Empire millennia to develop was becoming deeply unsettling. Either the humans were deliberately downplaying their capabilities, or they had achieved technological breakthroughs through methods completely outside normal development patterns. Captain, Nixtal said carefully, I'm beginning to think your species' technological capabilities may be more significant than our initial assessments suggested. Oh, we're still very primitive compared to what you've shown us, Chen replied.
Your biomechanical integration is completely beyond our understanding.
We've never seen anything that could grow and adapt the way your ship systems do. Yet your quantum technologies suggest a level of theoretical understanding that few species achieve. Chen was quiet for a moment, and Nixtal noted that she seemed to be considering her words carefully.
Engineer Nixtal, may I ask how your people developed their biomechanical technology? Through gradual integration over thousands of years, Nixtal replied. We discovered that organic neural networks could process certain types of information more efficiently than purely technological systems.
Over time, we learned to integrate organic and artificial components to create hybrid systems that were superior to either alone. A gradual, logical progression, Chen observed.
Humans don't always develop things gradually. Sometimes we make breakthrough discoveries that let us skip intermediate steps. What kind of breakthrough discoveries? Chen's expression became thoughtful. The kind that happen when your species faces extinction and has no choice but to find solutions that shouldn't be possible. Before Nixtal could ask for clarification, her examination was interrupted by a communication from the flagship. Admiral Vexhar's voice came through her implants. Chief Engineer, please report to the bridge immediately. We need your assessment of the human vessel's capabilities. Captain Chen, thank you for the tour, Nixtal said formally. We'll need to continue our analysis, but what we've seen is quite remarkable. Of course, Chen replied. And, Engineer Nixtal? Thank you for not making us feel primitive. I know our technology must seem crude compared to yours. As Nixtal and her team returned to the Sovereign's might, she couldn't shake the feeling that Chen's comment had contained levels of meaning she didn't understand. The human technology wasn't crude, it was terrifyingly sophisticated, yet presented in ways that made it appear simple and straightforward. The flagship's bridge was buzzing with activity when she arrived. Admiral Vexhar stood before the main display, which now showed a detailed analysis of the human vessel alongside data streams that Nixtal had never seen before. Chief Engineer, the Admiral turned as she entered. Your initial report mentioned anomalous readings from the human ship. Please elaborate. Sir, the vessel's capabilities far exceed anything suggested by external appearance. Their quantum processing systems rival our best bio-neural networks, their power generation exceeds our calculations by orders of magnitude, and their structural engineering suggests solutions to problems we didn't know existed. How is this possible with purely mechanical technology? Sir, I don't believe their technology is purely mechanical. They appear to have quantum-level systems integrated throughout the vessel, but presented in ways that make them appear to be simple machines. Admiral Vexhar's secondary eyes focused on the tactical display. Are you suggesting deception? Not deception, sir, but, perhaps, misdirection. They describe everything in mechanical terms, but the actual implementation involves technologies that should be impossible without bio-neural integration or equivalent capabilities. Sir, Communications Officer Keelneth interrupted, I've been analyzing the formal message from Earth that Captain Chen provided. There are aspects of it you need to see. The main display shifted to show the Earth government's greeting message. At first glance, it appeared to be exactly what Chen had described, a friendly introduction to humanity and an expression of hope for peaceful contact. But, as Nixtal studied the data structure underlying the message, she began to see the same pattern of hidden sophistication that characterized everything about the human ship. The message contains multiple information layers, Keelneth reported. On the surface, it's a simple diplomatic greeting. Embedded within it are detailed specifications for human technology, star charts showing the location of Earth and human colonies, and what appears to be a complete database of human scientific knowledge. A complete database? Admiral Vexhar's mandibles clicked sharply. How much information are we discussing? Approximately 47 terabytes of data, sir. Compressed using algorithms we don't recognize but can partially decode. It includes everything from basic mathematics to advanced theoretical physics, from human history to detailed specifications for technologies they haven't mentioned. Nixtal felt a chill run through her biomechanical implants. Sir, if they're sharing complete technological databases with First Contact, it suggests either remarkable trust or remarkable confidence. Explain. No species shares their complete knowledge base unless they either completely trust the recipients or they're confident that the recipients can't use the information against them. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Either the humans were incredibly naive about galactic politics, or they were confident that even with complete access to human technology, the Zephyrian Empire couldn't pose a threat to them. Sir, Tactical Officer Zixel spoke from his station, I've been analyzing the gravitational readings in this area. The humans claim they came here to investigate gravitational anomalies, but I can't detect any such anomalies. Could they be using more sensitive equipment than ours? The Admiral asked. Unlikely, sir. Our gravitational sensors are quantum-level instruments. If there were anomalies here, we would detect them. Unless, Nixtal said slowly, the anomalies only existed while the human ship was generating them. The bridge fell silent as the crew processed this implication.
If the human ship could generate gravitational anomalies significant enough to detect from 12 light-years away, their technology was far beyond anything in the Zephyrian databases. "Sir," Security Chief Mockstrain's voice carried urgency, "I'm receiving reports from the sections monitoring the human ship. Their energy output has increased by 300% over the last hour."
Admiral Vexar spun toward the tactical display. "Threat assessment? Unknown, sir.
The energy patterns don't match any known weapon signatures, but the power levels are sufficient to pose a significant threat to the fleet if weaponized."
"Have they explained this increase?"
"They claim to be running diagnostics on their systems following our repairs," Mockstrain reported.
Captain Chen said they needed to verify that all systems were functioning properly before they continued their journey.
Nixtal's biomechanical implants were detecting subtle vibrations through the ship's hull, vibrations that suggested massive energy transfers occurring aboard the human vessel. "Sir, I recommend we increase our own power output and maintain full defensive readiness."
Agreed. Admiral Vexar began issuing orders to the fleet.
"All vessels, maintain current positions but prepare for possible combat. I want full weapon systems online and biomechanical defenses activated." As the Zephyrian fleet shifted into a heightened state of readiness, the energy readings from the human ship continued to climb. Whatever the Wanderer was doing, it was drawing power levels that exceeded the output of most Zephyrian battlecruisers. "Sir," Keelneth reported, "I'm receiving a communication from Captain Chen.
She's requesting permission to extend their stay for additional repairs."
"Additional repairs?"
She claims their diagnostic tests have revealed additional system problems that need attention before they can safely continue their journey.
Admiral Vexar studied the tactical display showing the human ship surrounded by 300 Zephyrian vessels, all of which were now detecting massive energy readings from the supposedly primitive alien vessel. The situation was developing in ways that defied all his experience with first contact protocols. "Sir," Zixal's voice carried new urgency, "the human ship's mass displacement is changing. According to our sensors, the vessel is becoming more massive."
"More massive? That's impossible."
"Confirmed, sir.
The gravitational signature has increased by 27% over the last 30 minutes.
Either they're taking on massive amounts of matter, or their ship is somehow increasing its own mass." Nixtal's enhanced understanding of physics made her realize what they might be witnessing.
"Sir, if they're manipulating their vessel's mass, they're demonstrating control over fundamental forces that we've never achieved."
The tactical display suddenly flashed with new information as the ship's bioneural networks detected a change in the space around the human vessel. The fabric of spacetime itself seemed to be fluctuating, creating ripples that registered on every sensor in the fleet. "Admiral," Communications Officer Keelnetha's voice was steady despite the impossibility of what she was reporting, "Captain Chen is requesting a private communication channel. She says there are aspects of their situation that require discussion away from open channels."
Admiral Vexar looked around the bridge at his senior officers.
Each of them had served in dozens of first contact situations, but none had encountered anything like what they were witnessing. The humans had presented themselves as primitive explorers in need of assistance, but everything they were detecting suggested capabilities that exceeded even Zephyrian technology.
"Establish the private channel," he ordered.
"And, Chief Engineer, I want continuous monitoring of all energy patterns from that ship.
If they're preparing to demonstrate capabilities we haven't imagined, I want to know about it immediately."
As the secure communication link was established, Admiral Vexar found himself facing what might be the most significant challenge of his career. The humans were clearly not what they appeared to be, and the Zephyrian fleet had potentially placed itself in a position where it was completely outmatched by a single alien vessel. The private communication channel crackled to life with the strange electromagnetic patterns that humans used for conversation. Admiral Vexar found himself facing Captain Chen's image on his personal display, but something fundamental had changed in her demeanor. The polite uncertainty that had characterized their earlier interactions had been replaced by something that made his biomechanical implants register subtle threat warnings. "Admiral Vexar," Chen's voice carried through the translator with new undertones that suggested careful control, "I believe it's time we had a more honest conversation about our respective situations." "Captain Chen," Vexar replied carefully, your ship's energy readings have increased dramatically since our last conversation.
My engineers are detecting capabilities that weren't apparent during our initial assessment.
Chen was quiet for a moment, and Vexar could see her making calculations behind her alien eyes.
Admiral, may I ask what your intentions are regarding my ship and crew?
The directness of the question caught Vexar off guard. In normal first contact protocols, such blunt inquiries about intentions weren't made until much later in the relationship between civilizations. We intended to offer assistance and explore possibilities for cultural and technological exchange.
And, after that exchange? Chen's tone remained neutral. What are the Zephyrian Empire's standard procedures for integrating newly contacted civilizations?
Vexar felt his mandibles click involuntarily.
Chen was asking questions that suggested far more knowledge of galactic politics than an isolated species should possess.
The Empire seeks to bring order and prosperity to all species through cooperation and shared advancement.
I see.
Chen leaned back in her chair, and Vexar noted that her posture suggested someone coming to a decision rather than someone receiving information.
Admiral, I need to share some information that will change the context of our meeting. Please proceed. My ship isn't damaged, and we're not explorers who accidentally wandered into the void.
We detected your fleet's approach 3 months ago and positioned ourselves to intercept you. The words hit Vexar like a physical blow.
That's impossible. Our binaural sensor networks would have detected any vessel with the range capability to track us across interstellar distances. Would they? Chen's expression suggested she already knew the answer. Admiral, we've been monitoring Zephyrian fleet movements for over 2 years. This isn't our first observation of Empire expansion operations.
Vexar's secondary eye swiveled to check his tactical displays while his primary pair remained focused on Chen's image. Captain, you're suggesting surveillance capabilities that would require technology far beyond what you've shown us. What we've shown you, Chen corrected gently, is what we thought you'd be comfortable seeing. Humans have learned that revealing advanced capabilities too quickly tends to provoke defensive reactions.
Defensive reactions?
Vexar's voice carried the clicking undertones that indicated growing agitation.
Captain, I have 300 vessels under my command. What capabilities could your single ship possibly possess that would concern this fleet? Chen's expression shifted to what the translator interpreted as sadness. Admiral, this is the conversation I was hoping we wouldn't need to have. But, your question requires an honest answer.
She gestured to something outside her display's range, and Vexar watched as the energy readings from the human ship suddenly spiked beyond anything his instruments could measure. The binaural networks throughout the fleet began screaming warnings as space itself around the Wanderer started exhibiting properties that defied known physics. Sir, Chief Engineer Nixtel's voice came through the flagship's communication system with barely controlled panic. The human vessel is generating gravitational fields that shouldn't be possible. They're creating localized spacetime distortions. Admiral, Chen's voice continued calmly through the chaos of alerts filling the Zephyrian bridge. I need you to understand that humanity didn't develop interstellar flight the way most species do.
We didn't gradually advance through technological stages over millennia. We made specific discoveries that allowed us to skip several thousand years of normal development.
What kind of discoveries? Vexar demanded, even as he watched his tactical displays show impossible readings from the human ship. We discovered that the universe has rules, Chen replied, but that those rules have exceptions. And we learned how to become exceptions. The main display aboard the Sovereigns might suddenly filled with new information as the ship's sensors detected changes in space around the human vessel.
What they showed challenged everything Vexar understood about physics and engineering. The Wanderer was no longer a single ship.
Sections of what had appeared to be hull plating were folding away to reveal internal structures that had been hidden beneath stealth fields. The vessel's true size was becoming apparent, not 800 meters, but nearly 3 kilometers of ship that had been concealed using technology that made it appear smaller and less sophisticated than it actually was. Sir, Tactical Officer Zixhal's voice carried disbelief, the human ship is deploying.
I don't know what to call them.
They're not weapons in any configuration we understand, but they're manipulating spacetime in ways that suggest they could affect our fleet from this distance.
Chen's image remained steady on the private channel. Admiral, I want you to know that this demonstration isn't intended as a threat. It's intended as an explanation. An explanation of what?
Of why 17 other species fleets have encountered single human vessels and never reported the encounters to their home governments.
The words sent chills through Vexhar's biomechanical systems.
Are you claiming I'm telling you that humanity has been monitoring galactic expansion for over a century, and that we've developed specific protocols for dealing with species that follow certain patterns of behavior?
Vexhar's mind raced through the implications.
If the humans had encountered other fleets and those fleets had subsequently disappeared, it suggested capabilities that went far beyond advanced technology into realms that approached the impossible.
Admiral, Chen continued, our analysis of Zephyrian expansion patterns shows a species that conquers through overwhelming technological superiority, then integrates conquered populations into a hierarchical empire structure. Is this assessment accurate?
The empire brings order and prosperity by force when necessary, Chen interrupted.
Admiral, we've studied the remains of civilizations that resisted Zephyrian integration. We know what happens to species that don't submit to empire authority. Vexhar felt his confidence crumbling.
The human ship's demonstration of capabilities, combined with Chen's knowledge of empire expansion methods, suggested that humanity possessed intelligence networks and technological capabilities that exceeded anything in his experience.
What do you want? He asked finally.
We want the Zephyrian Empire to understand that humanity represents a different kind of civilization, Chen replied.
We don't expand through conquest, we don't integrate species into hierarchical structures, and we don't respond well to threats.
And if the Empire chose to respond to your capabilities with military force?
Chen's expression became genuinely sad. Admiral, 3 months ago, the Zirian hegemony made that choice.
They sent a battle fleet of 800 vessels to demonstrate the consequences of human interference with their expansion operations. The Zirian hegemony controls 12 star systems, Vexhar said slowly. Their military is one of the most advanced in this galactic sector.
Controlled, Chen corrected. Past tense. The Zirian hegemony no longer exists.
The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The Zirian hegemony had been a major galactic power for over a millennium. The idea that they had been completely eliminated by a single species was beyond comprehension.
You're claiming that humanity destroyed an entire interstellar civilization?
We're claiming that humanity eliminated a threat to galactic peace, Chen replied. The Zirian hegemony was consuming species at a rate that would have led to ecological collapse across 3 sectors. We provided them with opportunities to modify their expansion methods. They chose to respond with military force. Vexhar's biomechanical implants were processing threat assessments faster than his conscious mind could follow. If humanity had eliminated the Zirian hegemony, they possessed capabilities that put the Zephyrian fleet at enormous disadvantage.
Sir, Chief Engineer Nixtal's voice interrupted his thoughts. The spatial distortions around the human ship are affecting our biomechanical systems. Several vessels are reporting that their organic components are becoming unresponsive.
Chen's voice continued through the communication channel. Admiral, the energy fields our ship is generating are designed to demonstrate a point, not to cause permanent damage. However, if your fleet attempts to take hostile action, those same fields can be modified to less benign configurations.
You're threatening us.
I'm explaining our defensive capabilities, Chen corrected. Admiral, humanity has spent the last century developing specific technologies designed to counter the expansion methods used by species like the Zephyrian Empire. What you're seeing is a small demonstration of what those technologies can accomplish. Vexhar studied his tactical displays, looking for any option that might allow the fleet to respond effectively to the human threat. What he saw was deeply discouraging. The Wanderer's energy output was now exceeding the combined power generation of his entire fleet, and the space-time distortions it was creating were affecting Zephyrian systems in ways that suggested vulnerabilities no one had imagined. Sir, Communications Officer Kielneth reported, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout this region of space. It appears there are additional human vessels approaching our position. Chen's expression suggested she had expected this development.
Admiral, I should mention that the Wanderer isn't alone out here.
We never send single ships to make contact with potentially hostile fleets.
How many ships?
Enough, Chen replied simply.
Admiral Vexhar, I want to be very clear about something. Humanity doesn't want a war with the Zephyrian Empire.
We have nothing to gain from such a conflict, and we believe that most Zephyrians are decent beings who want to build something positive for their people.
Then, what do you want from this encounter?
We want you to understand that humanity exists, that we're monitoring galactic development, and that we'll respond to threats against species we consider to be under our protection.
Under your protection?
Chen gestured again, and the main tactical display in the Zephyrian flagship filled with star charts showing the local galactic sector. Hundreds of star systems were highlighted in blue, indicating human influence or protection.
Admiral, 37 civilizations in this sector have requested human assistance in resisting forced integration into various empires. We've provided that assistance.
We consider those civilizations to be under our protection, and will respond to threats against them accordingly.
The scope of human influence shown on the charts was staggering.
If accurate, it suggested that humanity had been operating covertly throughout the sector for decades, building relationships with species that were potential targets for empire expansion.
You've been interfering with natural galactic development for decades?
We've been protecting species that asked for protection, Shen corrected. Natural development doesn't include forced conquest and cultural assimilation. Vexhar realized that the encounter had moved far beyond first contact into something approaching a formal diplomatic confrontation between major powers.
The implications for the Empire's expansion plans were potentially catastrophic. Captain Shen, he said slowly, what outcome are you seeking from this conversation?
We're hoping for an understanding, Shen replied.
Specifically, we're hoping the Zephyrian Empire will recognize that certain expansion activities will be met with human resistance, and that such resistance would be costly for all involved. And if the Empire chooses not to recognize human spheres of influence? Shen's expression became genuinely regretful.
Then, the Empire will discover that humanity has prepared for that possibility as well. The tactical display suddenly filled with new contacts as space around the Zephyrian fleet began revealing previously hidden human vessels. Dozens of ships began appearing as their stealth systems disengaged, each one generating energy signatures that exceeded anything in the Zephyrian databases. Admiral, Tactical Officer Zixel's voice was barely controlled, we're surrounded. Human vessels are appearing at every vector around the fleet. Estimated count is over 100 ships. Vexhar stared at the tactical display showing his fleet completely surrounded by vessels that had been invisible until this moment. The technology required to maintain such sophisticated stealth while positioning so many ships suggested capabilities that made Zephyrian military doctrine obsolete. Captain Shen, he said finally, it appears you've been planning this confrontation for some time.
We've been preparing for the possibility, Shen agreed.
Admiral, humanity learned long ago that the best defense against aggressive expansion is to be so obviously capable of effective resistance that aggressive species choose different targets. The bridge of the sovereigns might have become eerily quiet as the crew processed the reality of their situation.
The most powerful fleet in Zephyrian history had been completely outmaneuvered by a species they had thought was primitive. What happens now?
Vexhar asked. Now, Chen replied, we discuss the future of human-Zephyrian relations and how our civilizations can coexist without coming into conflict. As Admiral Vexhar contemplated the impossible situation his fleet now faced, he began to understand that the humans represented something unprecedented in galactic politics, a species that had achieved technological superiority not through gradual development, but through discoveries that had allowed them to leap ahead of normal evolutionary patterns. The question that remained was whether the Zephyrian Empire would adapt to this new reality, or whether it would follow the path of the Zirian hegemony into extinction.
The emergency council session aboard the Sovereigns might convened under circumstances that no Zephyrian military commander had ever faced.
Admiral Vexhar stood before the assembled holographic projections of his section commanders, each face displaying the same mixture of disbelief and calculation that he felt in his own biomechanical consciousness. The situation is unprecedented, he began, gesturing to the tactical display that showed the Zephyrian fleet completely surrounded by human vessels.
We face an opponent whose capabilities exceed our understanding and whose intentions remain unclear. Section Commander Thrixinael, veteran of 17 successful campaigns, spoke first.
Admiral, our sensor analysis suggests the human ships are generating power levels that exceed our entire fleet's capability.
How is this possible for a species we've never encountered?
Chief Engineer Nixtal has analyzed their technology, Vexar replied, turning to the engineering officer whose biomechanical implants were still processing the impossibilities they had detected.
Her assessment?
Nixtal's mandibles clicked nervously as she accessed her report through the bioneural link. The humans appear to have discovered methods of manipulating fundamental forces that our science indicates should be impossible. They're not just using advanced technology, they're using technology that operates outside the parameters we consider to be absolute physical laws.
Explain, demanded Section Commander Yalseth.
They've demonstrated gravitational manipulation, spacetime distortion, and what appears to be selective alteration of mass-energy relationships.
According to our understanding of physics, such capabilities should require energy outputs equivalent to stellar cores.
Yet they're generating those outputs from vessels smaller than our heavy cruisers, added Section Commander Vix Kale, whose reconnaissance ships had been attempting to analyze the human fleet for the past 2 hours. Admiral Vexar studied the faces of his commanders, seeing his own uncertainty reflected in their expressions.
The immediate question is tactical response. What options do we have? Limited, Thrix Nal admitted grimly.
Our biomechanical weapons are designed to overcome conventional defenses, energy shields, armor plating, electronic countermeasures. The humans appear to be defended by manipulation of spacetime itself.
Could we withdraw and report to Empire Command? Suggested Section Commander HY Elkath.
Negative, Vexar replied.
The humans have demonstrated faster-than-light positioning capabilities. If they don't want us to leave, they can prevent our departure.
The reality of their situation was becoming increasingly clear. The most powerful fleet in Zephyrian history had been rendered effectively helpless by a species that had appeared to be primitive just hours earlier. Sir, Communications Officer Keelneth's voice came through the council chamber's speakers. Captain Chen is requesting to continue diplomatic discussions.
She's asking if she can transport aboard our flagship to meet in person. The suggestion sent ripples of unease through the assembled commanders.
Allowing an alien aboard the flagship during a tactical crisis violated every security protocol in the Zephyrian military handbook.
Transport? Vexar asked. Using what method? Unknown, sir.
She simply asked if we would permit her to come aboard to continue conversations. Section Commander Vixgale's specialized sensors had detected no shuttle launches from the human ship, no transporter signatures that matched any known technology.
How does she propose to traverse the distance between vessels? Admiral, Chief Engineer Nixtal interrupted, our sensors are detecting a new type of energy pattern building around the human flagship. It appears they're preparing to demonstrate another technology we haven't seen before.
The main tactical display shifted to show energy readings from the Wanderer that defy immediate analysis.
Whatever the humans were preparing to do, it involved manipulation of forces that registered on every sensor system in the Zephyrian fleet.
Sir, Keelneth reported with barely concealed amazement, Captain Chen has materialized in our main transporter chamber.
Somehow she's aboard our ship. The implications were staggering. Instantaneous matter transport between vessels without detectable energy expenditure suggested control over fundamental forces that approached what religious texts described as divine capabilities. Security status? Vexar demanded. No threats detected, replied Security Chief Mox Drain.
Captain Chen appears to be alone and unarmed.
She's requesting escort to wherever you'd like to meet.
Admiral Vexar made a command decision that would affect the future of both civilizations. Escort her to the primary conference chamber. Full security protocols, but treat her as a diplomatic representative. As the emergency council dissolved and the commanders returned to their respective vessels, Vexar found himself preparing for a conversation that could determine whether the Zephyrian Empire would adapt to a new galactic reality or follow the path of species that had chosen resistance over accommodation. The primary conference chamber had been designed to impress visiting dignitaries with the power and sophistication of Zephyrian civilization. Bioluminescent walls pulse with patterns that demonstrated the seamless integration of organic and technological systems, while the central conference table had been grown rather than manufactured, its living surface capable of displaying tactical information directly through touch-responsive neural interfaces. When Captain Chen entered the chamber, Vexar was struck by how utterly unimpressed she seemed by the sophisticated environment. Her expression suggested someone who had seen far more advanced technologies and was simply being polite about not mentioning the fact.
Admiral Vexhar, she said, removing her environmental helmet to reveal features that were less alien than he had expected. Thank you for agreeing to continue our discussion.
Captain Chen, he replied, gesturing to one of the bioadaptive seats that would automatically adjust to accommodate her physiology. Your transportation method was impressive.
Quantum tunneling, Chen explained casually.
It's useful for moving small amounts of matter across relatively short distances.
We developed it primarily for emergency evacuation procedures.
The casual way she described technology that the Zephyrian Empire hadn't imagined possible was becoming a disturbing pattern. Captain, I believe we need to discuss the broader implications of this encounter. Agreed, Chen settled into the chair, which immediately began adjusting its configuration to accommodate her alien anatomy.
Admiral, I've been authorized by Earth's government to offer the Zephyrian Empire a choice regarding our future relationship. What kind of choice?
Chen leaned forward slightly, her expression becoming more serious.
The choice between coexistence and conflict. Between adaptation and extinction.
The blunt statement hung in the air between them like a weapon.
Captain, are you threatening the entire Zephyrian Empire?
I'm explaining the reality of humanity's position in this galactic sector, Chen replied. Admiral, your empire has been expanding for over 2 millennia through a strategy of overwhelming technological superiority. You encounter species, evaluate their capabilities, and then either integrate them peacefully or conquer them by force. The empire brings order and prosperity, the empire brings forced cultural assimilation, Chen interrupted.
Admiral, we've studied the histories of 43 species that have been integrated into Zephyrian territory.
In every case, the original culture has been gradually eliminated and replaced with Zephyrian social structures. Vexhar's mandibles clicked defensively.
Cultural integration is necessary for maintaining order across diverse populations.
Cultural genocide is what we call it, Chen replied without apparent anger. Admiral, humanity has fundamental philosophical differences with that approach to galactic development.
And, you're prepared to enforce your philosophical differences through military action?
Chen was quiet for a moment, and Vexhar noted that she appeared to be choosing her words carefully.
Admiral, may I tell you about humanity's first contact with an aggressive spacefaring civilization?
Please proceed. 80 years ago, we encountered a species called the Devourer Swarm, biomechanical entities that consumed entire worlds to fuel their expansion. They attacked Earth without warning, intending to strip our planet of all organic matter.
And humanity survived, Chen said simply.
But the experience taught us that the galaxy contains species that view other civilizations as resources to be consumed rather than neighbors to be respected.
What happened to the Devourer Swarm? Chen's expression became genuinely sad. They no longer exist.
Humanity developed specific technologies designed to counter their biomechanical capabilities, and we used those technologies to eliminate the threat they represented.
You committed genocide?
We eliminated a species that was actively consuming other civilizations, Chen corrected.
Admiral, that experience taught us that sometimes survival requires capabilities that we'd prefer never to use.
Vexhar began to understand the true nature of what his fleet faced. The humans weren't just technologically advanced, they were a species that had been forged by conflict with enemies that had forced them to develop capabilities beyond normal galactic standards.
Captain Chen, what does humanity want from the Zephyrian Empire?
We want recognition that certain expansion activities will not be tolerated, Chen replied. Specifically, we want the Empire to understand that species under human protection will not be subject to forced integration.
And how many species are under human protection?
Chen gestured to the conference table's surface, which suddenly displayed a three-dimensional map of the local galactic sector. Hundreds of star systems were highlighted in different colors, showing the scope of human influence. Currently, 37 civilizations have requested human assistance in maintaining their independence from various imperial powers. We've provided that assistance through technological support, defensive capabilities, and, when necessary, direct intervention.
The scope of human operations was staggering.
If accurate, it meant that humanity had been covertly operating throughout the sector for decades, building a network of protected civilizations that effectively surrounded traditional imperial territories.
This level of intervention represents massive interference with natural galactic development, Vexar observed. Natural development doesn't include forced conquest, Chen replied.
Admiral, humanity believes that civilization should be free to develop according to their own cultural values and technological capabilities.
Even if that development leads to conflict between species?
Even then, Chen confirmed. We believe that genuine peace can only exist between civilizations that choose cooperation rather than submit to it through force. Vexar studied the galactic map, noting how human protection extended to species that the Zephyrian Empire had identified as potential integration targets. Captain Chen, you're essentially proposing to limit Zephyrian expansion to territories that humanity approves of.
We're proposing that Zephyrian expansion be limited to territories where local civilizations genuinely welcome integration rather than resist it. And, if the Empire chooses not to accept these limitations? Shen's expression became genuinely regretful. Then, the Empire will discover that humanity has prepared contingencies for that possibility.
Such as?
Admiral, the Zirian hegemony chose to test human resolve 3 months ago.
Their empire controlled 12 star systems and fielded military forces that were considered among the most advanced in this galactic sector.
You mentioned that they no longer exist.
Their military forces were eliminated in approximately 6 hours, Chen said quietly. Their industrial infrastructure was disabled through selective application of technologies that rendered their biomechanical systems inoperable. Their populations were evacuated to neutral territories where they could rebuild their civilization according to their own choices.
6 hours?
Vexar's biomechanical implants process threat assessments faster than his conscious mind could follow.
To eliminate an entire interstellar military force?
Humanity has been preparing for conflicts with aggressive imperial powers for 8 decades, Chen explained. We've developed specific technologies designed to counter every known method of interstellar warfare.
Including Zephyrian biomechanical technology?
Especially biomechanical technology, Chen confirmed.
Admiral, the energy fields our ships are currently generating are specifically designed to disrupt organic neural networks.
If we chose to modify those fields to more aggressive configurations, every biomechanical system in your fleet would become unresponsive within minutes.
The casual way Chen described capabilities that could eliminate the most powerful fleet in Zephyrian history was more terrifying than any open threat could have been.
Her tone suggested someone discussing routine maintenance procedures rather than weapons of mass destruction. Captain Chen, Vexar said slowly, what you're describing represents capabilities that approach the theoretical limits of what technology can accomplish. What we're describing represents what happens when a species faces extinction and has no choice but to develop solutions that shouldn't be possible, Chen replied. Admiral, humanity didn't choose to become a major galactic power.
We were forced into that role by species that left us no alternatives. And, now you're forcing the Zephyrian Empire to make the same choice? We're offering the Zephyrian Empire the opportunity to choose coexistence over conflict, Chen corrected. The choice is still yours to make. Admiral Vexar stared at the galactic map showing the scope of human influence and protection.
The implications for Zephyrian expansion plans were clear. Humanity had effectively established territorial boundaries that the Empire could either respect or challenge at the cost of potential extinction. What specific terms are you proposing? He asked finally. Recognition of human protected territories, Chen replied. Cessation of forced integration activities in star systems where local populations have requested human assistance.
And establishment of formal diplomatic relations between our civilizations. And, in exchange?
Humanity offers technological cooperation, shared research opportunities, and assistance in developing expansion methods that don't require forced conquest.
The offer represented possibilities that no Zephyrian commander had ever imagined.
Access to human technology could revolutionize empire development, but it would require abandoning expansion methods that had been central to Zephyrian culture for millennia. Captain Chen, Vexar said slowly, you're asking the Empire to fundamentally change its approach to galactic development. We're asking the Empire to evolve, Chen replied.
Admiral, the galaxy is changing.
Species like humanity are developing capabilities that make traditional imperial expansion methods obsolete.
The Empire can either adapt to that reality or be eliminated by it. As Admiral Vexar contemplated the choice facing his civilization, he realized that Captain Chen was offering the Zephyrian Empire something that no defeated species had ever received: the opportunity to surrender with dignity intact and future possibilities preserved. The question was whether the Empire would be wise enough to accept that offer. 6 months after the encounter in the Kepler Void, Admiral Vexar stood in the newly constructed diplomatic complex on Zephyr Prime, watching human engineers work alongside their Zephyrian counterparts to integrate technologies that had seemed impossible just half a year earlier. The sight still struck him as surreal: organic biomechanical systems interfacing seamlessly with human quantum processors, creating hybrid technologies that neither species could have achieved alone. The decision to accept humanity's offer of coexistence had not been easy for the Zephyrian High Council. Centuries of successful expansion through technological superiority had created cultural expectations that were difficult to abandon. But the alternative, potential extinction at the hands of a species whose capabilities seemed to defy physical laws, had ultimately proven persuasive. Admiral, the voice belonged to Captain Chen, who had become something between a diplomatic liaison and a technological consultant in the months since first contact. The integration tests on the new bioquantum processors are showing remarkable results. Vexar turned to greet the human who had fundamentally changed the trajectory of Zephyrian civilization. Captain Chen. I confess I'm still amazed by what our species have accomplished working together. Collaborative development has always been humanity's strength, Chen replied, gesturing to the complex array of equipment being assembled by the joint engineering teams. We learned long ago that the best solutions come from combining different perspectives and capabilities. The new technologies emerging from human-Zephyrian cooperation were indeed remarkable. Bioquantum processors that could grow and adapt like organic tissue while maintaining the processing power of quantum computers. Gravitational manipulation systems that could be integrated into existing biomechanical frameworks. Energy generation methods that seemed to violate conservation laws but somehow maintained perfect environmental balance. I must ask, Vexar said as they watched the teams work, how did humanity develop such advanced technologies in so short a time? Your species achieved interstellar flight only a century ago, yet your capabilities exceed civilizations that have been spacefaring for millennia. Chen was quiet for a moment, and Vexar noted the expression that had become familiar during their many conversations, the look of someone deciding how much truth to share. Admiral, humanity's technological development was accelerated by necessity. When the Devourer swarm attacked Earth, we had only primitive chemical rockets and basic nuclear technology. We should have been completely overwhelmed. But you weren't. No, Chen agreed. We survived because we made discoveries that our science said should have been impossible. Discoveries that changed our understanding of what technology could accomplish. What kind of discoveries? Chen gestured to the quantum processors being integrated into biomechanical frameworks. We discovered that consciousness itself could be used as a technological component. That human awareness, properly focused, could manipulate quantum states in ways that purely mechanical systems couldn't achieve. The implications sent chills through Vexar's biomechanical implants. You're suggesting that human technology incorporates consciousness as a functional element? Every human ship carries crew members whose primary function is quantum state manipulation through focused consciousness, Chen confirmed. What you've seen as advanced technology is actually the result of human minds directly interfacing with quantum systems. That's impossible, Vexar said automatically. Consciousness is a biological phenomenon. It can't directly affect quantum mechanical processes. Can't it? Chen smiled with what Vexar had learned to recognize as human amusement. Admiral, one of the advantages of being forced to find impossible solutions is learning that most limitations exist only in our assumptions about what's possible. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Chief Engineer Nixtal, whose biomechanical implants were interfacing directly with the new hybrid systems being developed. Her expression carried the mixture of wonder and concern that had become characteristic of Zephyrians working with human technology. Admiral, she reported, the preliminary tests on the consciousness quantum interfaces are showing results that exceed our most optimistic projections. But, sir, I must report some concerning implications. Explain.
If human consciousness can directly manipulate quantum states, and if their ships are operated through such interfaces, then every human vessel is essentially a weapon of unlimited potential, Nixtal said slowly.
The power limitations we thought governed their technology may not exist. Chen nodded approvingly.
Chief Engineer Nixtal is beginning to understand why humanity has been so effective at deterring aggressive expansion by imperial powers.
You're saying that human ships are limited only by the imagination and will of their crews?
Vexhar asked.
More or less, Chen agreed.
Admiral, when humanity was forced to develop defenses against the Devourer swarm, we discovered that consciousness and quantum mechanics interact in ways that create possibilities our physics hadn't predicted. Every human who learns to interface with quantum systems becomes capable of manipulating matter and energy at fundamental levels.
The scope of what Chen was describing was staggering.
If every human could potentially manipulate quantum states through consciousness, then humanity represented not just an advanced civilization, but an entirely new form of life that transcended traditional limitations between biological and technological capabilities.
How many humans possess these capabilities?
Vexhar asked. Currently, about 40% of our population, Chen replied. We expect that number to increase as we develop better training methods. Eventually, quantum consciousness interface may become as common as literacy.
And these individuals can all potentially
generate gravitational fields, manipulate spacetime, create matter from energy, or eliminate threats through direct quantum state manipulation, Chen confirmed.
Yes, Admiral.
Humanity has essentially become a species that can rewrite physical laws through focused consciousness.
Chief Engineer Nixtal's biomechanical implants were processing implications faster than she could verbalize them. Captain Chen, you're describing capabilities that approach what our religious texts attribute to divine beings.
Perhaps your religious texts.